The tour kicked off highlighting the progress Buffalo's made developing its waterfront. In addition to Canalside, the Erie Basin Marina, Wilkinson Point, and Gallagher Pier, it also focused on the new river parks, including Mutual's Riverfront Park, and right here at Riverfest Park, more commonly known as Peg's Park, for the visionary of this park, Peg Overdorf. Now, Peg, you run a community center. Usually governments build parks. How did this park come about, and how did you lead the way?
This park came about because as part of our fundraising efforts, we run the Buffalo River Fest. But nowhere along the Buffalo River was there access to the Buffalo River to run such an event. So we went knocking door to door and found a man that was willing to sell us his property. And we worked with then Assemblyman Mark Schroeder, now City Comptroller, and we navigated all the channels and all the grants and jumped all the hurdles. And here today we have a 2-acre beautiful public access park with tons of activities and venues, and it has revitalized this community tremendously.
Now, you just had Buffalo Riverfest held here right in the park. How great was that event?
It was better attended than ever. We had more boats in our regatta than ever. People from further points are coming to the park. Last night we held one of our weekly concert series. We had people from Gowanda, we had people from Franklinville, we had people from Kenmore, we had people from Amherst. So it's not just the city dwellers taking note of all this renaissance on the Buffalo River.
Now, what's next for Peg's Park?
Next for Peg's Park is a lodge, 2-story lodge, brick lodge, very historic looking. The roof gable will resemble the New York Central Freight House that once stood here with the double chimneys, and it will have 2 balconies overlooking the river, and it will offer food concessions, dining, banquets, meeting space, tons of photographs and heritage memorabilia inside the lodge, and just another great venue with public lavatories even.
The next stop on the tour was the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus. This 120-acre site will soon be home to the University of Buffalo's $375 million medical school and Kaleida Health's $250 million children's hospital. But the building behind me, the $291 million Gates Vascular Institute, is already changing the face of medicine. I'm here with Chief Operating Officer of the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, Pat Whalen. Now, Pat, the way this building, the Gates Vascular Institute, is designed is to foster interaction and cooperation between doctors and other hospital staff. How has that changed the medical industry in the Buffalo area?
Well, it's changed the medical industry worldwide, really. The idea is the brainchild of Dr. Nick Hopkins, who works here in the building, a longtime Buffalo neurosurgeon, and he had a vision to bring different practices together. So neurosurgery, cardio, radiologists, and vascular surgeons together in the same physical space so they can interact with each other and therefore trade ideas.
Now, this has actually come into practice once with one particular patient who was able to save many surgical procedures by just 2 doctors interacting. Am I right?
Correct. So traditionally what happened is in the old Gates Hospital, as an example, these doctors, these areas were in different floors. So the doctors very rarely interacted, maybe at a staff meeting or something like that, but in practice they didn't interact with each other. First week in this building when it was open, there was a neural surgery taking place, and the surgeon couldn't get to the brain through the vascular system because of a blockage somewhere else. So rather than closing the patient back up, sending him home, and rescheduling, the doctor went next door to a vascular surgeon and said, "Can you come over here and get this blockage out of the way so I can finish my job?" The vascular surgeon came over, removed the blockage, the neurosurgeon finished his job, the patient went home with 1 visit.
Now, one of the advantages of having everything under one roof is that if a doctor has an idea, he can turn that idea into reality, right?
That gets into the space we're in here called the Jacobs Institute. Everything below us is actually Gates Hospital. Everything above us is UB's Clinical Translational Research Center. Most of the doctors that teach at UB practice at Kaleida or vice versa. So as a surgeon is performing his duties downstairs in the hospital and he has an idea to do something differently, he can actually go upstairs to his lab and model the device he has in mind on a CAD program. If that works out, and it looks like it's going to work, at least in the electronic version of it, he can actually come down to this floor and where there's a fab shop and actually fabricate his idea. So they can actually move the process along here much quicker because they're in the same building.
And then you can even link him with a private investor who might take that idea to the market.
Right. So the idea then, if the idea looks like it's going to work, it can actually do a first-in-human trial. And the Jacobs Institute, there's people here that can expedite that process, work with the FDA, and get the first-in-trial test approved. And if that works, we can actually have a product that goes to market and do human trials. Now, most doctors, not all, but most doctors don't want to start a company. So how do they take their medical device and commercialize it? At the Jacobs Institute, there are people here that can help with that process, either find investors or find, if the doctor wants to start his own company, or perhaps find a successful entrepreneur that's been successful in another medical device thing and had an exit and now is looking to do it again. Find that guy, match the two of them up, and commercialize the product. So we actually want to start companies in this building. There's a UB incubator on this floor, so the doctor could actually start a company, incubate it here, and then hopefully grow the business.
So part of the goal of having all these organizations and facilities in one central spot is to spur this economic growth on the private sector side, correct?
Exactly. So that's a big part of what the Jacobs Institute is about. That's a big part of what my job every day is about here on the campus, is fostering the growth of private sector companies. So the other building we have on the other end of the campus, called the Innovation Center, is a place for private sector companies as they grow in the incubator here, and they outgrow that incubator space, which is quite small, so it doesn't take long to outgrow that. But down the street we have the Innovation Center, which actually has a lot more space and a lot more services available to help grow these early stage companies.
Now, with the medical school and the new children's hospital coming, there's going to be a lot of growth in this campus. How important is it to have the Metro Rail right at your doorstep?
Well, access is another big part of my job. How do people get to the medical campus? We have plenty of parking for patients and their visitors, family, things like that. But having the employees get here every day is a bit more of a challenge. And to that extent, having the subway station on the campus is a huge, huge opportunity for us. So I think we're going to see that the Metro line really starts to fulfill the promise that it had 30 years ago when it was first envisioned.
And you think this medical campus can be a driving force behind creating a new economy for the Buffalo region?
Yeah, I think we'll see, and we're already seeing, a lot of private sector development and housing along the subway line. So we already see it happening. Obviously, I think that's going to drive residents back to the city. People are going to want to live in the city, want to live, work, and play in the city, and a lot of them will work here on the medical campus.
The last stop on the tour was right here in Larkinville. Once known as the Hydraulics, this was the first manufacturing district in what was then the village of Buffalo. It's named after the Larkin Soap Company, at one point the world's largest mail-order retailer, also known for commissioning Frank Lloyd Wright to design its administration building. Then, tough times came upon this neighborhood. The business went bankrupt shortly after the Depression, and Frank Lloyd Wright's masterpiece was demolished in 1950. The surrounding area also declined, and just over a decade ago, it was virtually completely abandoned. That's when Howard Zemsky purchased the Larkin warehouse you see behind me and renovated into Class A office space. Residential, retail, and recreational development followed, and now this burgeoning neighborhood is one of Buffalo's biggest success stories. Before you renovated the Larkin building, this area was left for dead. How can other areas of the city replicate the success that you've had here in Larkinville?
You know, we had a vision and confidence, I think, in the people of Buffalo, who have a tremendous pride in their history and a lot of aspiration for the future. And actually, I think you're seeing a lot of that right now in Buffalo, whether you're talking about the west side, the medical campus, the waterfront, Larkinville. You know, there's a ton of interest in people working downtown and moving downtown. And I think that's only going to continue. I think we're going to continue to rediscover, for example, historic neighborhoods, whether there's the old First Ward, old hydraulic district neighborhoods, Larkinville neighborhoods. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think all the residential developers I talked to downtown all wish they had another 100 units to rent or sell. So I think we hit that tipping point. More and more people are interested in doing development and relocating here, living and working. So I'm very, excited about what I see. I've lived in Buffalo 32 years. I don't think there's been a better time to be in Buffalo in terms of our prospects.
What's next for Larkinville?
We're going to continue to actually add to the residential component down here. So we've started rehabbing some historic buildings and put residential on the top floors. We recently bought the former Larkin Men's Club building. We're going to do 6 to 8 apartments in there. Recently, we engaged with the University of Buffalo School of Urban Design, UB Regional Institute, to work on the next iteration of our master plan, which we did with them 6 or 7 years ago. We kind of checked off all the boxes on what we wanted to accomplish. So now we're re-engaging in terms of master planning for the district. So I expect to see more residential, more retail, more restaurants, and just the continued growth of the Larkin Square programming, concerts, author series, things of that nature.
Now, you're also co-chair of the Regional Economic Council that's tasked with creating a plan for Governor Cuomo's $1 billion pledge to Buffalo. What sectors of the economy are you focused on in order to spur economic growth?
Yeah, so there's 3 primary sectors of the economy we're focused on with respect to the Buffalo Billion. That would be the life science economy and leveraging the tremendous public resources that have gone into the medical campus. Tourism, where we have over 50,000 people employed in that industry, and that really leverages the asset of Niagara Falls and the amazing art and architecture of Buffalo. And advanced manufacturing, where again we have over 50,000 people employed in that sector. We have over 1,700 small and medium manufacturers, and the concept of producing here, exporting beyond Western New York, and importing, in essence, the associated dollars and jobs attached to that. Very traditional wealth-creating industries is really our focus. So 3 sectors: tourism, life sciences, and advanced manufacturing. Not to the exclusion of the other sectors of the economy, but if you're asking what are we really highlighting and focusing, it's those 3 sectors of the economy.
Now, you also mentioned the focus on the city. How has sprawl affected the community, especially in consideration of the population loss we've experienced?
So we have the unfortunate distinction of being the only region in New York State out of the 10 regions that has lost population over the last several decades, while simultaneously occupying 2.5 times the landmass. So we have like almost 600 miles of more roads than we used to with less population. We continue to duplicate services, costly infrastructure, maintenance, and in the process, we've made it harder in some ways for people to get to work, to use public transportation. And if we're not careful about reversing that, we'll continue to embed poverty, make it difficult to get to work for people who don't have cars. And we're missing out on creating that vitality and density that young people are looking for, people who have options where to go. We need to create compelling, vital downtowns for them. Nobody graduates college and says, where is there the greatest sprawl? That's where I want to go. They want to know job opportunities, waterfront, public transportation, cool restaurants, other young people, cultural activities, recreational activities. So we're very focused on, the vitality and vibrancy of downtown as an important part of our economic development strategy. So we're all about trying to reverse those trends of sprawl. You're going to see us support, lots of projects in the city and really concentrate investment in the city.
Now, Moody's and Standard & Poor were just here to take a tour of Buffalo. Have you heard from other people around the nation about the success we've had in the city?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Buffalo, I think, has really emerged on the national radar screen. We just hosted, through the Community Foundation, a number of national foundations just yesterday who are interested in what's going on in Buffalo. And they're reading about it, they're hearing about it, this whole new approach to economic development and all the positive things that are going on in the city, be it the waterfront, the medical campus, revitalization of old neighborhoods. So we've definitely emerged as a hip, happening city with traction and vision. So I think we're excited about that. And like I started out saying, I think the prospects for Buffalo, from where I sit, having been here for 30 some odd years, have never looked better.